The Hangar Z Podcast welcomes retired Los Angeles Police Department SWAT Sergeant Chuck Buttitta. You are one of those people that made it to 20 David. It's a small club. In the history of LAPD SWAT, there's 10, maybe, we think, approximately people that have held that position. Describe 20 David's position and then tell us about the badge tradition.
So the 20 David position is pretty much the lead sergeant. There's a badge that all the 20 Davids wears currently. The badge is number 4154. And for LAPD SWAT, that's a very significant set of numbers.
In this 3-episode series, we're honored to sit down with retired LAPD SWAT veteran Sergeant Chuck Buttitta. Over the course of 4 decades, Chuck was a true customer of law enforcement aviation units, working alongside aircrews in countless ways. His career path spanned patrol, narcotics, SWAT operator, sniper, SWAT supervisor, and even search and rescue in retirement. Chuck's distinguished service is marked by numerous accolades, including the Medal of Valor, 2 police stars, the Police Commission Unit Citation, the Police Meritorious Unit Citation, 2 Bureau Commendations, more than 150 minor commendations, the 2009 Top Cop Award, and in retirement, the Ventura County Citizen Medal of Merit for an ice snow rescue that Chuck was part of. Chuck joins us to share the customer's perspective on aviation support, particularly during SWAT and K-9 operations. It's a critical conversation because aviation units exist to serve and protect those on the ground, our officers, deputies, troopers, agents, and ultimately the communities we all safeguard. In episode 3, we shift to a topic deeply important to both Chuck and this podcast: remembering our fallen officers. Chuck reflects on how remembrance must go beyond words and into action. One powerful example is the Police Unity Tour, which both Chuck and Jack participated in many times. We'll talk about how this life-changing experience honors those we've lost, how you can get involved, and why carrying their memory forward is one of the most meaningful things we can do. We hope you enjoy this conversation as much as we did. Thank you again to all our sponsors and followers. We appreciate you very much. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave us a review. Thank you to our sponsors: Metro Aviation Incorporated, Canyon Aero Connect, and Airbus.
Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z Podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like they're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, threw the shotgun, threw something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
It's time for your Heli Life giveaway buzzword. Listen up and remember this word because you'll need it to enter for a chance to win exclusive Heli Life gear. Ready? This episode's buzzword is turbine. Visit contest.verticalhelicasts.com to enter the buzzword.
Let's just touch on a couple things here. The Hollywood PED is the prostitute enforcement detail that you worked. You were one of the first people. That was a uniformed position most of the time, not always, that where you supported vice, right? I mean,
Right.
That and that was a good way to get into vice. And for those that don't know, Chuck's wife was concerned about all this prostitution stuff. Julia Roberts is not on Hollywood Boulevard, just so we're clear. Now, John Roberts, it might be there, and Joe Roberts is there quite a bit, but it's not like the movies.
On that point, Jack, I just want to interject because my wife had a similar concern that Chuck did. When I was working in Ontario, I was assigned to the eastern portion of Ontario for a while, and the eastern portion had the truck stops. And prostitutes love to hang out in truck stops. And I tell her, we're doing a lot of prostitute enforcement. She was a bit concerned until she went on a ride along with me. And I introduced her to a few of the prostitutes that existed at the truck stop. And she goes, "Oh, I see what you're talking about now."
I got you, honey. Yeah, I did the same thing. Tracy got to see, because we took Polaroids of every single arrest, and I'd bring them home in a stack and say, "All right, yeah, here's last week's work." She go, "Ew." I go, yeah, it's not, Julia's not out there. She's not there, just so you know.
And now we call it human trafficking.
Yes,
it is. It is so sad for those men and women that are controlled by others for human trafficking. The part that really gave me inspiration to do that job and to work was the community. I worked in, mostly in Hollywood, in Vice, and there's residences along Hollywood, Sunset, Santa Monica Boulevard. And those poor residents are locked in their homes at night because of what's taking place out onto the street. And they pay taxes. They deserve to live in a better area. I know everybody, talks about either, legalizing it or making it a minimum thing. But you think about your residents, or anybody watching this, you think about your residents. Do you want that type of activity taking place out on the street in front of your place?
Yep.
No. That's who I was working for.
The complaints were countless. The number of phone calls that Vice office got from citizens saying, "When are you going to do something about this on this corner?" I mean, those complaints came in every single day, multiple times a day, and then we'd go work it, and it would help for a little bit. But then it comes back, and you can only be so many places, because there was times when you saw it, Chuck, where there's dozens, if not 100 girls on Sunset or on Hollywood, in one evening. And there was other times where it wasn't like that. But I mean, it was a terrible problem in Hollywood for decades. Thus, the PED and Vice people, I was a big Vice unit. I think it was like 10 or 12 Vice officers in Hollywood. I mean, most Vice units around the city were 3, 4, 5, not Hollywood. It was like 10 or 12 operators plus 2 sergeants and a lieutenant that were assigned. So that's cool that you got to work that. I'm happy I got to work it too. In hindsight, it was a lot of fun. Talk about what you did in K9, because you weren't just a K9 supervisor. You went another step beyond just being a supervisor in K9 during your time there. Talk about that.
Started off in K9, learned a lot from Doug Roller, who Jack knows, who was the trainer for LAPD K9. And, we would going to calls, and a K9 supervisor's responsibility. Anytime the K9 units are searching for an armed suspect, a supervisor needs to be on scene. And it's not a admin position at all. You are out on the street working, with the K9 officers, often being on their search team, and then depending on the situation, doing some coordination with the incident commander in regards to that. And we can talk later about how we utilized air assets with that. But at some point, one of the other things we would get calls for is, "Oh, we have a missing child," or "This person is missing. Do you have dogs that can search for that?" Well, you're not going to use patrol dogs for that. So the city of Los Angeles was utilizing a civilian volunteer unit from the county of Los Angeles to do tracking. And we kind of looked into that a little bit, because there were some stories out in the K9 world about their dogs and their abilities and stuff like that. Well, that got to the chief of police level, and Chief Parks started hearing about these rumors, and he wanted to know, why does LAPD not have a tracking dog to track missing subjects or using criminal investigations? So I was approached by Steve Zipperman, the lieutenant at that time, and says, "Hey, I want you to develop a tracking and trailing program with Doug Rollers. So Doug and I went across the United States and visited different departments. This is kind of like what we talked about before. Yep. Other departments had the skill and the abilities that we didn't have. We visited other areas of the country and with teams that did tracking and trailing. And we ended up looking at a group called the Canine Academy in Canyon Springs, Colorado, where John Lutenberg was the instructor, and he worked for the prisons there with using bloodhounds and tracking dogs. And we found their training to be the most credible, along with the National Police Bloodhound Association. And I was tasked with putting that subunit together in Canine. My recommendation, though, was because patrol canine guys are pretty tough, hardcore men and women, police officers, and they look at a bloodhound as what the heck is that? Which was a bridge to get over. So I made the recommendation that if we started this program, that I should get one of the dogs and one of the handlers get a dog also. And that's what we did. We were able to purchase some bloodline dogs from bloodhounds from Canada, started the program, went through numerous classes of training in Colorado and back east, New York and upstate New York with the National Police Bloodhound Association. And we started the program. We had fair results, I would say. It's difficult doing bloodhound searches or any tracking or trailing in a hot, dry environment, but we had successes. We found missing kids. We provided intel information on suspects so for example, if our dogs would take a trail and then the trail would disappear, or we'd lose it, we just, we took a very conservative path, and we would not say that the guy got on a bus or got in a car. We don't know. My trail went from point A to point B, and I lost the trail. Provide that to the investigators. The investigators would then blanket that area. And a number of times I found myself in court where they said, well, you said the trail end here. We did some door knocking and they gained some information and somebody saw this and blah, blah, blah. We end up getting the murder suspect. And, we'd go to court and say, this is what we did. We told the investigator, and then the investigator would say how he picked up that lead and moved on to the next point. So that was the success of the tracking and trailing program in Los Angeles. At the same time, I was still doing the patrol dog supervision and so forth.
You had a lot on your plate. Just controlling canine handlers is a hard enough job. Jeez.
As you would know, Jack.
Yes, I know.
On the bloodhound side of things, when you think of all the tracks or tracking you did, of all those successful missions, what was the one that stands out as the most impactful that you were a part of with those bloodhounds?
Well, I can never just say one, but I'll give you two. I get a call on a Santa Ana day in the Santa Monica Mountains in Los Angeles, and it's a 81-year-old male with dementia missing from his bedroom. His wife wakes up in the morning, they sleep in separate bedrooms, his sliding door is open that leads to the backyard, and he's gone. So using a unique sent article to that gentleman, I sent my dog, Canine Megan, and Megan takes me into the backyard. We kind of wander around. We go through an open gate in the back of the yard, and he's up on the hill, and we start going through a canyon, laterally across the canyon. And I used a 20-foot lead, and Megan makes a popping right-hand turn downhill. I get to that right-hand turn, and I see his blue robe tie there. And I'm like, wow, we are on this. She goes down, we go down the hill, and Megan was pretty fast. She's going fast. I'm trying not to fall in my butt as I'm going down this hill. And she's making some winding turns going down the hill. There's no trail or anything like that. I don't see any footprints. I don't see anything. I'm going too fast to really look for footprints. All of a sudden, the leash goes limp, and I see Megan's tail wagging. Through training, she's got the subject. He's under a bush, and he's in bad physical condition. I called in our air support. Obviously, they don't do rescues like that because we were in the middle of a canyon. We brought in LA County, I think it was fire department. They did a hoist operation from there, and I think Megan saved this guy's life.
Oh, no doubt.
The second one was a 2-year-old, I think it was a 2-year-old boy in the Santa Monica area of Los Angeles. And it's next to a park, and everybody this is frantic. The kid was in the front yard playing with his trucks in a dirt mound or playing out front for some reason. 2 years old is pretty young to be playing out front, but that's what they thought. So a little girl says, "Oh, a guy came over from the park and took him." And so, okay, so everybody's frantic. They're searching, they're interviewing this kid and stuff like that. So they asked me, could I do a track? Well, one of the things I do with missing people first is I always check the residence. I ask the officers, "Hey, did you guys search the resident?" "Yes, we searched the resident." "Did you go everywhere?" "Yes, search." God bless them. I believe they did. But I want to do it myself with my dog.
Yep. Always.
I go into the house. I don't even give the dog the scent article because it's not kind of the way it'll work inside the house. I like to be at the last known location type of thing. And I see Megan starts running around. She's running around. All of a sudden, she jumps up on the couch. She's got her nose in the seats, and her tail's going like this. I pull the cushion off, and all I see is the bottom of a tennis shoe. I grabbed the kid's leg. I thought he was dead. Pulled him up, flipped him over, held him. He opened his eyes and looked at me and gave me a smile. I walked out of that. So I grabbed Megan and I walked out of that house to the mom and dad that were out front with all the cops and everything like that. I said, "Hey, this your son?"
I could just see you saying that too. "Is this your son?" Wow. That must have been amazing, the reaction from them.
Yes.
And I'd also like to see the jaws drop of the officers that searched that house. But that's why you do it, right? And that's why you do it, because I'm guilty too. I've missed people, are guilty. Dogs doesn't care about anything except for what it smells. The dogs put aside all that other nonsense that we get influenced by. "Oh no, somebody took him because she said so." Okay, well, it's possible, but maybe she's mistaken, or maybe she's imagining things, and you're covering the bases and with a tool that doesn't care about the story. They don't care about how old the person is. They don't care about any of that. They just care about sniffing, finding it, and taking you to it. And that's, oh my gosh. The emotion of that must have been amazing.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Jack, I want to emphasize, you use the word tool. The dog, there's all these stories about tracking dogs and scenting dogs and stuff like that with all these miracle things. They're a tool, they're an element. They're not the total answer. Yep. I do believe canines should be used appropriately by law enforcement at the appropriate time. And that's a skill that sometimes gets lost out there. But it's an option, and it's a tool to use. Never are they 100% correct.
That's right. Just like us. We're not 100%. They're not 100%, but it is a great tool, and it works really nicely for certain things. And you proved that. Those are two really good examples. Really.
And
good.
Our dogs are we train them with the air crews in the helicopters for transportation.
Yep.
So bringing it back to air crews and helicopter work and stuff like that, we put the dogs in muzzles, they get in the helicopter, and they get transported. There were a number of times that I was transported from Ventura County into the city. I've been transported by air unit, picked me up in Thousand Oaks and brought me to Riverside for a case.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things that air support units get tasked with. And we've talked about it before. You better have a policy, practice, and procedure in place ahead of time, because you mentioned the word muzzle. I've said this for years. That's your boarding pass.
Yep.
So let me ask you, Chuck, and I don't know what your answer is. I think I know, but did Megan have a muzzle?
Yes.
Yes. And you know what? Here's the thing. The reason I said I wasn't sure, it's just a bloodhound. Bloodhounds don't bite. Well, Chuck and I will tell you, we won't mention his name, will we, Chuck? Because we didn't get permission. But Chuck and I have a very good friend, mutual friend, that got mauled by a bloodhound and almost lost his leg. Okay. So, and it was his bloodhound. I mean, breaking up a fight between dogs. So the reason I'm saying that is air crews sometimes let their guard down and say, well, it's just a bloodhound. They don't need a muzzle. No, it's a dog. It's a dog. Dogs have mouths. They have teeth. They perceive things differently than we do. Something can happen where the crew could be at risk. It's not, the Malinois. I want that muzzle on that. But not the bloodhound. And it's like, no, it's a dog. So I'm very, and again, I didn't know 100% that you were going to say that, but I thought you were. That's good. It's a good policy.
That was your policy.
Yeah, it's a good policy. It's a risk management policy. That's all it is.
Another similarity that we've found with air crews and canine operators is our job is to catch the bad guy and find the good guy. Another example of us doing just that through your examples. And I love that both the examples you provided were on the complete opposite spectrums of age. You've got the 81-year-old male with dementia and the 2-year-old child. And that's our goal, is to help find those people that are good folks, just missing for whatever the reason. So really cool examples. On the theme of the customer, a question I have for you, and I'll go back just briefly. We had a conversation with Saban Emery, who's a captain with Texas DPS, and he talked about an officer-involved shooting that he was over as a TFO. He did a really good job of organizing and orchestrating the tactics that are going on the ground. And we talked about how a TFO's job a lot of times is to insert themselves and say, hey, stop right there, freeze the scene, and let's readjust. And I think the conversation, if I remember correctly, was us talking about how important it is for an air crew to recognize what's happening on the ground and be assertive enough to hit an all stop and to understand and adjust what's happening on the ground accordingly. So the question I have for you as a canine handler, and Jack, this will apply to you too, are there any instances you can think of where something like that happened, where that air crew effectively stopped or readjusted what's happening on the ground? And the reason I ask is I think a lot of times people are afraid, not having to have worked in a canine unit. I don't want to say something because I don't want to upset these guys, or I don't want to assume that they think I'm an expert in this thing. So I guess that question is a way to, ask yes or no if you've been a part of that, but also to reaffirm that idea that is a great job. A great air crew will do those things.
Well, as a supervisor, and I'm going to let Jack handle most of this answer because he was an actual handler. But as a supervisor at a patrol canine search, we're coordinating. There's tactics that canine use, whether it's searching from both ends of the street, in or out, or opposite sides, adjacent to each other, and not going into the same yards at the same time. There's that coordination that takes place. 95% of that coordination is between the handler and the air crew.
Yeah.
The supervisor, all I'm doing is paying attention to what's been cleared, what hasn't been cleared, trying to make sure that the containment in that search area is in place, and then bringing in the resources that my canine units need. Jack, why don't you talk specifically about that stop and starting?
Yeah, I will say this, that if we had a TFO trainee that was not willing to insert themselves when they should, we didn't keep them. They were gone. We are not interested in those people. We would explain it and say, you can be very professional about it, but the ground units are looking to you for that. They want your expertise. They want your tactical insight. They want even the most elite, the SWAT, the canine, the bomb squad, these specialized units. They want you there. If they don't, they'll tell you to leave. And there was times when they would. SWAT, once it was contained, they'd say, you know what? The noise is just too much. Why don't you guys take off? And we would. I mean, that's their choice. It's a tool. So, but what I'm getting at is, if you weren't willing to tell those people, hey, Sarge, stop there, hold that corner, do not go into that yard. If you're not willing to do that based on something you see there, then we weren't interested in you as a TFO, because there are things that you will see from the air that are impossible for that handler to see, impossible for that SWAT operator to see. And you got to at least tell them about it, paint the picture, and let them evaluate what they want to do with that information. They may say, hey, thanks a lot, and ignore it. That's their prerogative. They may say, oh my God, thanks, Air, you saved my butt. So I love that Chuck brought that up. Or the question was great, John. I love Chuck's examples, but and I'll go back to Chuck's 2-year-old example. I've flown over many missing child things, and the first thing we always said as an air crew was the residence thoroughly cleared? And I remember one over Beverly Hills where we asked that question, and they said, oh yeah, we cleared it. And we said, was it thoroughly cleared? I mean, go through it again. We have some experience in this area from stories like Chuck's. That's not the first time a kid's been found inside the house, And sure enough, that search, they went back in, and under a pile of laundry was the sleeping kid. I mean, we saved, just by asking that question and giving a little push, we saved hours and hours of agony for the family, hours of hard work by patrol officers and canine handlers. And I mean, just by saying, hey, you got to go through every inch of that house. It's a toddler, okay? They can fit anywhere. And they go back in, clear it, find them. Now, does that happen every time? Sometimes there's other things that happen, of course, but that takes a strong TFO. There are TFOs that say, that's out of my lane, man. I don't want to insult them, just like you described, John.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's if you can't do that, you shouldn't be a TFO. That's your job. You're supposed to be that fresh set of eyes. You're supposed to be that outsider that's not emotionally involved, over a variety of scenarios. So great question. And because it comes up often, and especially on canine searches.
I think we talk about how difficult communications are as a TFO. That's our primary job, is to communicate to the ground personnel, give them our tactical insight.
Yeah.
So, with that, if that is something you think you might struggle with, think through how you might tactfully respond to somebody, a lieutenant, a captain who might be in the field, who needs to hear you say stop. Yeah. Somebody you might be reluctant to tell to stop, whether it's because they're a subject matter expert, as a canine operator, as a SWAT operator, whatever that thing is. Think through how you might say something that, like Jack said, is tactful in a way that gets their attention, and lets them know, hey, there's something going on here. You need to pay attention to it. So, yeah, I think
Chuck,
really
you did it as a canine supervisor. I don't even know the stories. And I can tell you that Chuck had clashes with people of higher rank than himself. Look at him smiling. You can tell he knows. I know what I'm talking about. He knows. Where you had clashes because you were the subject matter expert as a canine sergeant, and they wanted to do something that was completely stupid or completely wrong or not timely or whatever it was. Am I correct?
Yes. Had a canine situation where we're searching for a suspect who had been involved in a lot of shootings, a couple of homicides and stuff like that. And this was an individual, one of those ones where you chase them for a couple of days, and finally we had a good canine search going, and a couple of canine officers working together sent a dog down a driveway. Dog alerted on the trash cans. There was like 2 or 3 trash cans lined up there. And, they made their call outs and so forth. And the suspect popped out of the trash can with 2 handguns and opened fire, became an officer involved shooting. And the subject went back into the trash can. So, and no response. So now we had a very stupid policy in LAPD at that time, was that if an officer was involved in a shooting, you immediately pull him back to the command post. And I had to go toe to toe with it wasn't an assistant chief. He was a commander or something like that, who was yelling at me to pull those officers back now.
Yeah.
And I held my ground, says, no, they're in the middle of a battle right now. We're going to bring in, bring in SWAT at that point. And let's use there's no rush.
Yeah.
There's no
Time's
rush.
on your
I'm
side.
not going to get my officers shot or killed or moved or bring in fresh officers. Now you have, you have more officer involved shooters. Leave the people that have the knowledge, what's taken place at that situation, leave them there. Let the SWAT officers get there. Let them get a one-on-one briefing from those officers to the SWAT officers, the shooting officers to the SWAT officers. Then once SWAT has it contained, we'll bring the shooters back and we'll do the separation and all the legal needs. But when you're in the middle of a gunfight and you're in the middle of a battle, I have very strong beliefs of how a situation needs to be handled.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I use that same story in my class. There's a third gun in that guy's waistband, by the way, when SWAT eventually gets him out of that that trash can. And one of the shooters is a former Hangar Z guest, Yvette. And the other one lives right up the road from me here in Bend. Yes, Gina lives right up the road. So,
yes,
I mean, that was a great example. Time is flying by here. We've got a whole second theme to get to. But before we get to that, I just want you to talk about 20 David for a second. And the reason I think this is important is, that is a very unique job within the LAPD. 10 David is a lieutenant. 20 David is a sergeant that is heavily involved, closely involved with what's going on in whatever mission SWAT is going on. You are one of those people that made it to 20 David. And we were talking about it earlier offline. It's a small club. In the history of LAPD SWAT, there's 10, maybe, we think, approximately people that have held that position. Describe 20 David's position and then tell us about the badge tradition.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
So the 20 David position is pretty much the lead sergeant, even though we work together as a team between the lieutenants. There's now 2 lieutenants there, the lieutenants and the sergeants. But basically, if the officers or the supervisory sergeant's crew has issues with the lieutenants or something that needs to be brought up and they're maybe a little sticky and they don't want to bring it up, he's kind of like the lead for the sergeants to deal with issues and to be that bridge between the officers and the supervisors and the lieutenants or captains and command staff. That's kind of what that position is. I was there for just a short period of time before my retirement. But there's a badge that all the 20 Davids wears currently. The badge is number 4154. And for LAPD SWAT, that's a very significant set of numbers. You have the SLA shootout, and you also have the Black Panther shootout. And those were on streets. So those streets represent the 41st and 54th, where those shootouts took place. And the way that this badge came into effect started actually with Steve Gomez. He was a fantastic sergeant in SWAT, and he was the 20 David. And he was out in the field working some type of an incident, and he saw a female police officer come up, and he looks at her badge, and it's badge 4154. And Steve says, "Oh, we need that badge. What can we do to get that badge, that's the sergeant badge, to come to D team?" And she was like, "Nah, it isn't going to happen. This means a lot to me, the badge that was given to me, blah, blah, blah." So Steve tries, I think, like 2 times to get the badge from her, to get it transferred over to us, and she won't have anything to do with it. Well, unfortunately, at a SWAT incident in the San Fernando Valley, our first and only SWAT officer was killed in the line of duty, Randy Simmons. Jim Veenstra was wounded pretty heavily in that incident. And Randy was such a conduit with the community and his church and the mission project that he was involved in, besides being probably one of the toughest, strongest, solid SWAT officers in Los Angeles. And it was a shock to the city, to the department, and extremely shocking and emotional to the SWAT in LAPD, supervisors and officers. And at Randy's funeral, this female sergeant came up to Steve and she says, "Here."
Oh.
So that badge was handed over to LAPD SWAT. She got herself a new badge, and Steve was the first one to wear that badge. On the back of the badge, as the 20 Davids started changing every couple of years, the name of that supervisor was placed on the badge and I'm one of the officers, one of the sergeants whose name is on the back of that badge.
Oh.
So it's a tradition, and that started after Randy's death, and it is extremely meaningful to us because tradition is very important. There's a lot of traditions in law enforcement, a lot of traditions in SWAT, and the Sergeant's 4154 badge is one of them.
Wow. It's amazing. It's an amazing story. The whole thing is amazing. The fact that Steve noticed it, and just that at a command post, and says, "Hey," and the ball gets rolling, and good for that sergeant for coming to Steve after Randy's death and saying, "Hey, this belongs in D team." Wow. Very powerful. And, that I cannot stress enough how much respect the 20 David position gets. I mean, I still call when Chuck and I talk, "Hey, what's up, 20 David?" And that's to honor him because that's a big deal. It's a really big deal. All the 20 Davids, that's a special position. And not just Chuck, all of them, but certainly Chuck. So Chuck, let's talk for a few minutes about some additional specifics, I should say. We talked about the airborne platform shooting with SWAT and air support and that relationship. Let's talk about the everyday SWAT operations that can involve air support and some of the value that outside of the airborne platform shooting and the reconnaissance, the everyday call-ups. How is that helpful? Sometimes it's not as helpful. Talk about that.
Well, the basic process to get SWAT involved in an incident would be there's a certain criteria. Armed individual who's contained in a structure or out in the open, and call gets screened down. And it's always, so 99.9% of the time, there's patrol officers that are started the incident. and there's an incident commander. He'll make a call to a Metropolitan Division and put him in contact, generally with one of the 2 lieutenants or maybe one of the sergeants, and give the incident. If it meets the criteria, then the bell is going to be run and SWAT is going to deploy to it. When LAPD SWAT deploys to an incident, they'll deploy a specific number of officers that have the ability of sniper, crisis negotiation, entry, breaching, and any other elements that they feel that are specific. That also includes all the equipment that comes out with our own command posts, the armored vehicles, and now there's a technical squad that has the drones and various technical elements to come out and respond. So usually when we get there, there's an air unit overhead, and it's keeping watch on the containment and so forth. Usually the SWAT supervisor will get a briefing, and then different people will make contact with the air unit to kind of get an eye in the sky, intel of what's going on down the range like that. And then the lead sergeant and the lead officer, which we call a team lead or a 3+1, will go downrange, get eyes on the location, and start deploying containment and come up with a tactical plan. That's the basic way that SWAT gets involved in stuff. Now, there are some times that are fast ones that are developing. Maybe when you're driving in, you hear of a bank robbery, and there could be some self-deployment there to assist and then make communications with the team to go ahead and make it a full team response. The way that the air units have been able to help us on a lot of these incidents is with technology now being able with the cameras to do a downlink. So the command post, even though we have downrange, maybe the officers and so forth, but the command staff and the lieutenants from SWAT can be back at the command post and in our command center be able to get an aerial view of what you're talking about. Because we try and paint a picture to command staff, because ultimately they make decisions on permission for us to use the tactics that we want to use. So being able to give them an actual view of what we're talking about gives them in a better position to make to support the decisions that we're coming up with downrange. We've used air support for insertions, and probably one of the best ones is that we train at a shooting range that's in the north part of Los Angeles. And to get down to the harbor during rush hour, either morning or afternoon, can take us forever, even lights and sirens. Sometimes those are inhibiting us from making good progress. But for them to be able to pick people up, transport a crew down, inserting them into the area is time-saving and probably life-saving. We've used and trained being able to rappel from the helicopters, and more specifically, is fast roping from the helicopters. So being able to take an element in a heavy lift helicopter and be able to move them near a target on top of a roof or somewhere like that. And if they don't have the ability to land because of antennas or whatever that are on top of the building, we can slide down the ropes, fast rope down onto the building and place us in the positions that we need to be in. So there's a lot of coordination. There's a lot of elements of training and together, what's safe, what communications are we using, knowing when, like you think about fast roping. You're coming into a target, you're kicking the rope out the doors, and you're gaining access to the rope and sliding down. You're not attached. So there is no safety attachment. Your safety attachment is your hands and and your grip and your feet, and there's specific ways to do that. And the air crew has to make sure that that rope is ending up in a position that's a platform for people to land on. Through training, we've had incidents, unfortunately, where the rope has, or the air unit has drifted a little bit, and somebody's gone down an air conditioning duct type thing. There's a lot of time spent working together with the air crews to make it safe, and they provide an element for us so that we can get ourselves in position to do the job.
I've got a couple follow-up questions. So I'll start with where we are now, and then we'll go back to, I have some questions about communication as far as the briefing side of things go. But for fast roping, it seems like for, I think, risk management reasons, a lot of agencies have gone away from fast roping. So you've talked about the benefits of that, but for agencies that may be considering either going back to a fast roping operation or adopting that as part of their mission profile, can you talk about whether it's best practice or some things that you would advise commanders to look at when considering adopting this part of their mission profile?
Well, you have to balance that risk. That's, you're not going to do it just for fun. You're only going to utilize it when there's no other option of inserting somebody in a position. I know with Ventura County for search and rescue, we don't do fast roping. We use hoist operations, or they'll use what they call a hover load, and that's putting a skid down on maybe a rock or side of a hill or something like that, where they're clear and safe for them to do so, and for us to step off the helicopter. We did that in LAPD. We had a coordinated dance doing that with 4 members standing on the skids, being flown to a rooftop. The helicopter gets down to within a couple of feet of the deck, and together, coordinated-wise communication, coordinated-wise all coming off the helicopter at the same time so we don't cause an issue with the helicopter. And Jack can talk a little bit more specifics on that.
Yeah, we called it SIP, SWAT Insertion Procedure, and it was something you had to practice, both as an operator and as a pilot, because if everybody steps off evenly through training, it can be done very nicely. If they're all following the procedure and they are practiced and current on it, and they all step off evenly, it's a no-brainer. It's not hard at all. But if they're not coordinated, all of a sudden you're getting a significant wobble and weight change, and it can cause issues. And more importantly, sometimes you're in a very tight spot where you can't afford that wobble. You're on a very small helipad, or you're in a remote area where you're putting them into a tight area. So that took a lot of practice, and that was something that we did regularly with SWAT. Only a certain number of people got trained in it because it was something you had to stay kind of up to date on. But it worked. It worked good. And the other thing was, we could do it 2 ways. We could either land and they could just step off the skids, where it just becomes a transport, but you're standing on the skids to be transported, or we could transport you on the skids and then do the SIP, where we were at probably about a foot off the deck. That's what you tried to get, and you would hover. And this is to give you the worst case scenario. We can't land here because of the roof won't hold us, or whatever it is, and they need to step off. So that was an important thing that we did with SWAT, and it was vital to train for it. You can't just do that and wing it. You'd get in trouble. You'd have people hurt badly if you just wing that. That's something that took practice and policy and procedure.
Risk mitigation is critical regardless of the mission we're doing. And so I think the consideration that needs to go into place for this mission in particular is important. Can you talk about, as a tactical commander, the value that you gain in your options of going either from the top down or mid-level up or down, or from the bottom up? As a commander, having those options, how important was that to you, and what kind of advantages does that offer?
Thank you to our sponsor, Canyon Aero Connect. Canyon Aero Connect has been a trusted leader in airborne law enforcement communication since Paul Wolfsburg introduced the first flight phone in 1970. While our name has evolved, our commitment to innovation and quality remains strong. Contact us today at CanyonAeroConnect.com to explore our latest mission-critical solutions.
Well, it's very important, not to give tactics away, but we're not always going through one position. We're not always going in someplace through one door, through one window, through one opening that we've created. We want to keep the suspect off guard and the element of surprise. Plus, it's a backing feature. If we're unable to make entry in one position, we want to be able to go through a different position to get into where we need to get in. So having the ability to get to different levels, especially in Los Angeles with high rises, is very important.
Yeah. We talk about putting ourselves in a position where the first time you're asked to do something isn't the first time you're doing something.
Yes.
But if your agency is an agency that has a SWAT team, that has some buildings that, might fit the profile that we're talking about, I think you need to spend some time thinking through these different things we've discussed and come up with a solution and a way to train so that the first time you respond and put your officers on a rooftop or in a different position, either by helicopter or not, it's not the first time you're doing it. So This is the kind of value I think, Chuck, you're bringing to this conversation. I really appreciate you going through this stuff with us. It's huge.
Yeah, even in a rural area. We had a shooter in the Los Angeles area that took us up to mountains, San Gabriel Mountains, and next to Los Angeles, and having to put officers, SWAT officers, in different positions on a mountaintop. Or there's an old incident we used to call Desert Duster, Desert Cluster, out in the Mojave Desert. It was a narcotics raid, and we had to put officers in different positions, utilizing multiple aircraft and utilizing a command and control aircraft.
Yeah. But I want to go back briefly to, you talk about as the 20 David showing up on scene of a new SWAT incident, and you show up to this command post, you get the incident brief, you look at the downlink, and you start coming up with a plan based on what you're seeing. Can you talk about the value of the aircrew providing the tactical insight they're seeing for you as a SWAT commander through the lens of the downlink? Because we know just seeing the downlink is great, but having some context to go with that's almost more important than that. And aircrews, I think there'd be a lot of benefit from them hearing from you. And these are the things that are important to me as a commander. So what could aircrews do that would help brief you when you're new to a CP and new to an incident?
Well, first of all, just maybe give an overall picture of what we're looking at. So here's the structure. Here's what's on all four sides of that structure. Probably the most important thing is access. If we want to get on side 3 of a structure, which is usually the back side, right? The non-street side is side 3. How can we access that? Do we have to drive all the way around? Can we put them in through gates and backyards and so forth? And then the other part is real obvious. During all this deployment, do we have patrol officers that are exposed with where they're at? Do we need to clean that up, get them out of the line of sight from the suspect? And is the suspect eliding from where he is at? We've had that happen, where we get on scene and all of a sudden the guy's coming out a window someplace. So all that information is it'll be done specifically on the SWAT frequency if the SWAT supervisor and the 3+1 that is running tactics for that incident have a question. The air units are able to monitor multiple channels and be able to hear what the question is and get on our frequency and give us the information that is needed.
Yeah.
It's another set of eyes.
Yeah, the downlink is so important. What my biggest thing was, for many patrol functions and for special events, the downlink wasn't utilized properly. We were just giving them a picture, and they just, people of very high rank would just go, "Oh, that's cool." Whereas on the SWAT incidents, it was incredibly valuable because they used it correctly. I can specifically remember somebody from SWAT getting on the air and saying, "Hey, Air, can you zoom in as tight as you can on that door on the 3 side? I want to see the hinges on that door." Where they want to know where the hinges are. And we'd zoom in and show them. They go, "Thank you very much." I mean, that little things like that, that's important to a SWAT operator. And, we were able to do that safely without some SWAT person having to get really tight to that location to see those same hinges. Very valuable, but it was used properly. We told our TFOs, when you get over a SWAT incident and they're asking for downlink, tell them, remind them, "Hey, anything you want to look at, you just let me know." And they would do it. They would say, "I need to see the 1 side." "Okay, let's go to the 2. Can you zoom in on this? Can you show me what's here? Zoom in on that shed for me." That's the value of downlink. It's not just having a great camera and a good operator. It's using it properly with the customer on the ground. And SWAT was a great example of how that was used right. You did that as 20 David. "Hey, I want to see something." Your element leaders would go to the camera, or go to the screen and say, "Hey, Air, I want to see this specifically." And that's how it needs to be used. It's great for tactical situations, providing that you have two-way communication with the 2 subject matter experts. And the TFO is providing what you want and need. You're the priority. You're the customer. What do you want from us? That's the kind of the theme. To follow up on that, though, Chuck, there are times when maybe the noise isn't worth what you're getting in return. Talk about that briefly, and how sometimes you may ask to say, "Hey, either we really don't need you now. The noise is too much, or could you gain some altitude?" Because even media ships, a couple thousand feet up, sometimes would drive you guys crazy. I mean, the noise was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So talk about the noise and how you're not insulting anybody. You're just choosing to make it quiet.
Once we have the information and we've deployed on the residence or the location, the structure, just for a little peace of mind, sometimes we ask for some quiet because we kind of want to hear if the suspect's making noise or moves or barricading sounds. We've had that happen quite often where we can hear the suspect barricading doors, barricading windows, and so forth. All these are elements of information that can be utilized by the tacticians to, make a safe entry. We've done the opposite too. Well, we've done the opposite. We've had you come in low, make noise for us because we want to make a move. We want to apply a piece of equipment that we don't want to tip the occupants off with. So we've had air assets come in, make some noise. We can get it done, and then we'll ask them to pull out a little bit. Quite often, we've asked for them to have the news ships move out.
Yeah.
For 2 reasons. And I'll give the credit to a lot of news crews. Now that I'm an old retired guy sitting here watching this stuff on TV, I'm watching through a camera on a helicopter by the news crew. And I'm like, you guys are way too close, but I'll give them credit. They pull out.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's the law enforcement or they're doing it on their own. But, suspects these days have ability, even if the power is cut, to watch TV channels. We see it in the pursuits where they're getting communications from their buddies as, okay, you got airships above you, you got this, that many cars are in the neighborhoods. The same thing takes place there.
It used to be a bigger problem. I mean, I remember many conversations where we'd say, "Hey, TV, whatever, SWAT is asking if you would not show what you're showing right now," because you were able to watch that at the command post and say,
yes,
"Man, they're zoomed in on where we're about to enter." And back in the day, it was a battle with certain people, but now it's changed dramatically. They are much more cooperative than they used to be on that. So between the noise and what they're showing, they understand now.
We used to have the ability to control the environment. So especially when we have hostage incidents, that is extremely important that we are able to control everything that's going on in that area so that the suspect doesn't know where we're at, what we're doing, and what's coming their way, because it's life-threatening to the hostages.
Yeah.
We used to have the ability to control the telephone lines because we had suspects that would call into news areas, news stations and so forth, or talking to people that were cheering them on to do whatever they were doing. We're back. So we were able to control everything, phones, power, water. We could control everything in that area so that we were able to convince this person to come to a peaceful resolution. It's gotten harder with cell phones.
Yeah.
We had, I was working a number of incidents, and we had the subject that was on the cell phone talking to a third party. That's really difficult for negotiations, especially in hostage incidents.
Yeah, and their ability to get intelligence that way. Suspects in the attic hiding under 5 levels of insulation, streaming KTLA Channel 5 news to his phone, seeing everything going on. So it's changed the dynamics 100%.
It has.
So
there's tools out there for it. It's just dealing with the political environment for the ability of law enforcement to utilize those tools only when necessary in specific incidences.
Right. Yeah, this has been a really, really good conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to go through some of that stuff. Any other aspects as either a SWAT team, 20 David, or running the K9 program that you saw that was really effective, that aircrews did well, or things that you saw like, what, I wish they had done this differently or not done it at all?
Well, we always debrief. It was very common for SWAT or K9 to head up to air support because you guys had such a nice office. Just sit around and talk about, hey, here's some lessons learned. Here's some, suggestions, and understanding each other why something was able to be done or was not able to be done. I think that's the biggest takeaway is that, we have a great relationship, and I would be very supportive of all the air crews getting together with their specialized units that use them a lot. And you guys used to do it air support. Come on up and let's do a barbecue. Let's do a lunch, or, inviting them to our going aways or our retirement parties. I highly recommend that you build that camaraderie, build the relationship between the two elements, and we're all working for the same goal, not let personalities get in the way of resolving any issues, but do it professionally and move forward, and let's get the job done. Let's get the mission done.
Yeah, I love that. Opening the doors of communication is huge. We talk about the necessity to communicate with each other all the time. Critical incidents, usually you're going to have K9, SWAT, and air support overhead. We're working together all the time. So why not make an effort to communicate more frequently and in more of an informal situation? And if you're only communicating during stressful incidents, what you're talking about, the risk of personalities getting in the way is pretty high. But if you open the door to the hangar and be like, hey, come hang out, let's have some burgers, talk about whatever, it really changes that dynamic. And I think it's a good dynamic to look after.
One of the benefits I saw with LAPD, and I'm not sure all departments can do this, but Jack Shanley is a perfect example of that. Had a career as a handler, went to air support. He brought all that experience and information to air support and working air support. So when you're making selection processes, when you look for those people that had the experience in the positions that can enhance, and like Jack shared it with everybody at air support. And ultimately more TFOs came out of Metropolitan Division, out of SWAT, out of K9. Probably out of some surveillance units.
Yeah. That varied background and expertise is huge when it comes to air support. The more experience you have in a lot of ways, the better, so.
Yeah.
Chuck, I want to thank you again for all the insight you've given us on the SWAT side of the world. Again, wanting to give insight to the air crews as to what our customers want and need. Your insight was gold there.
You're welcome.
You did talk about Randy Simmons a bit, and it did highlight, a lot of what we do in law enforcement is difficult for a lot of reasons. And I think the most difficult part of any law enforcement officer's career or public safety personnel's career is dealing with line of duty deaths. It's horrible. You and Jack have both been a part of an organization that your goal is to honor these folks who've paid the ultimate sacrifice. Can you guys talk about what you guys are doing through the Police Unity Tour and how that is working to not only honor the folks that have paid the ultimate sacrifice, but to raise awareness to benefit the family members that still stand with us today and all the good things that go with the Police Unity Tour?
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors. Thank you to our sponsor, Canyon Aero Connect. Canyon Aero Connect has been a trusted leader in airborne law enforcement communication since Paul Wolfsburg introduced the first flight phone in 1970. While our name has evolved, our commitment to innovation and quality remains strong. Contact us today at canyonaeroconnect.com to explore our latest mission-critical solutions.
Thank you for listening to the Hangar Z Podcast. This 3-episode series was a lot of fun to record. Chuck is a fantastic ambassador for our profession and has an amazing amount of real-world experience in a variety of positions, even into retirement. His customer perspective is important for all of us to hear. In my old unit, we always stressed the word support in Air Support Division. It's not about us. It's not our call. It's not our pursuit. We're there to support the customer in any way we can. To do that, we must talk to our customers and find out exactly what they need and what they don't need from us. The more we do that, the better service we provide. When that happens, we become essential to their mission and not just a luxury. You've heard that line before. Join us in pledging to do all we can in honoring our fallen brothers and sisters in law enforcement. Find a way to act on that pledge. Consider looking into the Police Unity Tour in your region. For more information, go to policeunitytour.com. Stay safe, and we will catch you the next time on the Hangar Z Podcast.